Hey kiddos, so I'm going to read some more from the story that we've been reading, and we will go on from there. Chapter 14, Evan and Bump Escape, the G-rated version. Run for it, Evan shouted. I can't run, remember? Bump shouted back. I'm a log. Okay, then roll for it, Evan hollered, and off they rolled. Interruption. The storyteller guy is sincerely sorry for this interruption, but thought that you, the reader, were probably getting too scared back there. Hey, non-stop line dancing is enough to frighten anyone. Therefore, I created the alternative escape scene which you just read. If, however, you dare to read what really happened, then proceed to chapter 15, the R-rated version. If you are worried about that it may be too violent, please go directly to chapter 16. Sincerely, the storyteller guy. Chapter 15. Evan and Bump escape, the R-rated version. Go on, Budva, the tall Dane said with a big dumb grin on his face. He was holding the great golden unicorn in one hand and a plain old ear of corn in the other. You take the unicorn, and I promise I will not whack you with this other piece of corn, yeah? Evan reached out and took the unicorn. Whap! Ouch! Evan cried, putting a hand on his forehead, the very spot where the Dane just whapped him. What did you hit me for? You just said you wouldn't. Because you stole the unicorn, the tall Dane said. Yeah, whap, whap, ouch, ouch, Evan cried, trying to shield himself from the attack. I did not steal your stupid unicorn. Evan was having a hard time shaking the Dane infectious accent. I mean, I didn't steal your stupid unicorn. You just gave it to me 2 seconds ago. You happy Danish person. I knows that, but it's much more fun to say that you stole it, said the leader of the Danes, dancing and chasing Evan around the fire. That way I can back you with this other piece of corn. Whap, 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 whap. Thief, the tall Dane shouted. Thief, he stole the great golden unicorn. All the Danes rushed over to help, but they had to keep dancing, so it took them a while. Thank goodness. Evan was much quicker than the dancing Danes. He was able to zig and zag, wiggle and squiggle his way through the crowd of riled up Scandinavians. But Evan and Bump's luck had run out. They had to escape, and quickly, because the Danes had suddenly turned angry and they were closing in on them. Evan and Bump tried to run every which way, but found no escape. There were too many Danes. Eventually, the two of them would be captured and forced to dance forever. However, before they dragged on too long, Bump came up with an idea to save the day. I've got an idea, Bump said. Stop, drop, and roll. And that's exactly what they did. First, they stopped. Then they dropped. And then they rolled away. That way because the Danes weren't able to stop dancing due to uncontrollable happiness. No one, not even the flexible Dane, was able to grab a hold of them. It's working, Evan shouted. He and Bump were much too quick for the Danes. Bump had been rolling since he was a baby log, and Evan was a quick learner. Roll for your life! Bump shouted. Hey, wait 1 second! The tall Dane hollered, chasing after them with an angry mob of Danes right behind him. You can't leave now. We just started the new song. Besides that, you stole the great golden unicorn. Evan and Bump didn't stop. They just kept on rolling with it. We were going to make you very happy, said the Danes' leader, but then you had to go and steal the great golden unicorn. Now we are very angry Danes and cannot possibly win the happiest country in the world contest this year. And it's all your fault. Get them, unhappy Danes. The dancing Danes were sure mad that Evan took the golden unicorn, even though he really didn't. Still, for being mad, they all looked pretty darn happy. This was probably because they continued to dance and smile and wave their Danish flags. This way, Evan, Bump called to his friend. The two of them headed for the path that led back to the big red door. Come back, Bud Vot! Shouted some anonymous Danish person. Their sudden angry vibe didn't matter because by the time the Danes got halfway down the path, they forgot why they were chasing Evan and Bump in the first place. Yes, come back, shouted some other Dane. We miss you already, and your talking log friend too. As soon as they felt that they were far enough away, Evan and Bump stopped rolling. Somehow, incredibly, probably to save time, Evan and Bump quickly found their way back to the beginning of the forest of flatulence. They were back at the big red door, but what they didn't know was that a bunch of red jumpsuits with dancing people inside them were, gasp, standing right behind them. The Danes obviously knew a shortcut. Hello, but what? The tall Dane hollered from the crest of the hill. The Danes were barely 20 yards away. We are sorry for saying you stole the unicorn, but what? Won't you please come back? We will make you an honorary Dane. We will dance and sing and be so happy. The leader of the Danes tried to do some kind of crazy breakdancing move, but he toppled over and got his arms and legs all tangled up. Uh-oh, I went whoopsie, and now I roll down the hill towards you. A great pile of Danes was now tumbling down the hill towards Evan and Bump, collecting speed. Oh no, we can't stop. We can't open the door from this side, Evan shouted, still trying to shake the Danes' accent. Pulling on the door was pointless since there wasn't a knob on their side. Did you try knocking? Bump suggested. They didn't I think of that, Evan cried. Evan pounded on the door as the Danes tumbled down the hill, headed straight for them. He and Bump were frightened and terrified and scared, and any other words you can think of that mean exactly the same thing. The Danes were less than 10 meters away, or in other words, roughly 32 feet and 8 inches away. 10 meters, 9 meters, 8 meters, 7 meters, 6 meters, etc., etc. Who is it? Shouted a familiar voice on the other side of the door. It was Red, the boy cycle. Of course. Since everyone had probably forgotten about him by now. It's me, us! What? Her, Evan shouted. Open the door, Red, hurry! 5 meters, 4 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters. Isn't this exciting? Me? Me who? Red asked. The Danes were just centimeters away, which, in case you were wondering, was calculated using a metric system because that's what the Danes use. It's but what? Evan yelled. I mean, Evan! It's me, Evan! Open up! The Danes are coming! The Danes are coming! 1 meter. Suddenly, even though he didn't have fingers or an opposable thumb, Red miraculously opened the big red door. Evan and Bump raced through the opening and slammed the door shut just in time. The door bulged a bit, but there was no huge thump, like one would expect from an entire settlement of Danish people slamming up against a door. That was close, Bump said. No kidding, Evan said, his heart still racing a little too close. Looking around, Evan saw that it was daylight once again inside the forest of flatulence. It had been dark, but conveniently it was daytime once again. Evan shook his head at the convenientness of it all. Red was stirring with excitement. Excuse me, sir, madam, whichever the case may be. Red drove in circles all around Bump, his eyes wide with curiosity. Are you a talking log? Are you? Yes, Bump said, glaring at the excitable talking tricycle. Weird, Red said, meaning no harm. He was just a little excited to meet a talking log. Oh, and I suppose being a talking tricycle is perfectly normal. Bump was a little offended by the young boy cycle's comment. Who are you, anyway? Sorry, I forgot, Evan said, apologizing for not making proper introductions like his parents taught him. giving the reader a valuable life lesson, even though this isn't supposed to be a book with cheesy reminders built in. Red, meet Bump. Bump, meet Red. Hello, pleased to meet you. Hello, pleased to meet you too. Now that everyone was introduced and safe from the Danes, it was time to figure out what to do next. Evan was now unicornless, which meant he still had no way to get home. If it hasn't been mentioned already, Evan dropped the great golden ear of corn during their daring escape. So now what, huh? Now what? Red asked, hyper as ever. Bring. Yes, Evan. What do you suppose we do now? Bump asked. Even he was curious as to what happens next in the story. Well, I suppose we go to the second quest, Evan said as he got on top of Red. Hey, since we've come this far already, we might as well keep going with this ridiculous story, right, guys? Undoubtedly, Bump said, whatever that meant. Woohoo! Red said, which everyone could understand. To the Odiferous underground, Evan cheered, pointing to the other wooden signpost that had magically appeared out of nowhere. Odiferous underground this way. Chapter 16. The Odiferous underground. Without bothering to give much explanation, clarification, or even any description of their journey, Evan, Red, and Bump made it safely to the Odiferous underground. Now, the three of them were looking down at a sewer grate, which was inexplicably right in the middle of the dirt path. Wonderful, Evan said, staring down at the grate with his new friends. I have to go down there. Enter here, one at a time, please. Oh, man, Red said, looking sad. This time I'm too big. I can't possibly fit down that round hole. Hey, I bet Bump can fit because he's round. No, I have sensitive nostrils, Bump said. Looks like I can't go down there either. I guess you're on your own, Evan. So just like the first quest, Evan had to go alone. With the help of his friends, neither of which had hands, the heavy grate was pulled up to reveal the black hole underneath. Wish me luck, Evan said to his friends as the second quest got underway. He began to climb down the ladder into what he assumed was going to be a stinky, smelly, rotten, disgusting, awful sewer. Good luck, Bump hollered down to Evan. Smell you later, Red said. Then he and Bump started sliding the heavy lid back in place. Don't want anyone falling in. Before Evan could ask, how are you guys able to move that grate? If neither of you has arms, the sewer grate was put back in place. This left Evan in the pitch black, super blackety black darkness. Only scared little babies are afraid of the dark, Evan told himself, continuing to climb down. Yeah, only little kids are afraid of the dark. So that means I stopped being scared, a scared little kid, ages ago. Down, down, down. After an undetermined amount of time, Evan made it to the bottom of the sewer. Fortunately, the place didn't smell all that bad, considering it was a sewer, but it certainly didn't smell all that good either. Evan fumbled around in the dark, still pretending to not be scared. He had to tell himself over and over that he wasn't afraid of the dark. Nope, I'm not scared one tiny bit at the moment, Evan said, trying to act all macho. What's the worst thing that could happen to me down here in the dark all alone? Even if I did hear some terrible growling noise coming from a terrifying monster with razor-sharp teeth, all I have to do is climb back up the... Evan patted the wall. I said all I have to do is climb back up the... As Evan was having yet another conversation with himself, his hand was busy searching the wall for the ladder he had just climbed down. The only problem was the ladder wasn't there anymore. To make things excruciatingly clear, the ladder was gone. Hello, Evan said. Anyone home? Suddenly there was a terrible growling noise, which may or may not have come from a terrifying monster with razor-sharp teeth. It could have just been Evan's imagination, or perhaps it was his tummy rumbling. Either way, now Evan started to panic. Now Evan started to be scared. Now Evan started to act like a frightened little kid, even though 10 seconds ago he had said he was well past that stage of his life. Evan searched and searched for the ladder, but he couldn't find any trace of it. He did manage to find something else. A light switch. Yes, there was an electrical light switch coming right out of the wall, which was made of dirt. And everyone knows that electricity doesn't come from dirt. Wisely, Evan didn't spend too much time thinking about how ridiculous this was. And neither should anyone else. Eureka! Evan said, as if he was some kind of outdated scientist. He flipped the switch on and, just like in most cases, light suddenly filled the room. Hey, wait a second. The room Evan was standing in wasn't a gross sewer after all. In fact, the room looked very familiar. Somehow, inexplicably, he found himself inside his father's workshop, which was really the garage. Everything was exactly the same as it was back home. The old lawnmower was in the corner. The old coffee can with all the nails in it was sitting on the workbench, and Father's wall of tools with each tool in it in its properly chalk outline place was the same as it had always been. There was no monster, but there was a tunnel past the garage where there should have been the door leading back to the kitchen. There was a tunnel, a huge tunnel that was big enough for a very tall person to walk through without bumping his or her head or heads or a very tall monster. Evan accidentally said out loud, accidentally scaring himself. Looking around the room, he realized that following the dark, spooky tunnel was the only way he could go. No problem, Evan said, ignoring his labored breathing and accelerated heart rate. I'll just take the flashlight. He took the flashlight from the workbench and this rubber mallet. He grabbed the rubber mallet down off the wall of tools. He figured that a hacksaw would probably be a better weapon to use against a dangerous monster, but Father never allowed him to use any sharp tools without adult supervision. And neither should you, kids, Evan told the audience, suddenly turning into some kind of safety advisor guy against his will. Thankfully, Evan quickly dropped his safety guy act and began to creep through the dark tunnel. And kiddos, we're going to, well, let's finish chapter 17. Chapter 17, the Odiferous Underground continued. The tunnel kept going down at an angle with each step Evan took. He was getting further and further away from civilization and closer to severe grossness. Yuck, Evan said. Smells like dirty socks down here. Dirty socks stuffed with rotten eggs. My dad's stinky socks. After an undetermined amount of time, Evan began to get nervous that he might never find his way out. Then he saw his first sign, which did absolutely nothing to calm his fear. Terrifying monster. This way. Then came the sign. I'm not kidding. Then this one. Terrifying monster any minute now. And then this one. Okay. There's no terrifying monster, but there is a lot of serious scientific work going on here. And finally, this one. Turn around, go back! Pretty please? Evan finally made it to the main sewer system. He was now traveling along a cement walkway. The surrounding walls were made of bricks, not dirt. There were lots of fluorescent lights above and also painted footsteps to use as a guide. To his immediate right was a foul river of muck, yucky stuff, whooshing along thousands of gallons of grossness. Ew, gross, Evan said out loud for the sole purpose of letting everyone know just how bad it smelled. The smell was so awful that Evan was forced to pull his shirt up over his nose. What is this awful place? Evan asked. Venturing further down the corridor, he was in some kind of underground laboratory. Then he came across 2 more signs. The second to last sign reads as follows. Ralph TRONICS, Laboratories, Inc. The last sign read, Quiet please, canine genius at work. And then from behind the lab door there came a terrible growling noise. And with that, kiddos, we're going to stop there today.